Welcome, everybody out there, to the Rico 12 Ask It Basket with Robert and Whitney and me, Justin B., a son of God and a recovering addict, living in the miracle of recovery one day at a time. And I'm just so grateful to be here and to be associated with people as amazing as Robert and Whitney and be able to do this, just bring questions and pick experience, strength, and hope out of each of them. So what I'd like to do now is just have Whitney introduce herself and tell her a little bit about what's going on in her life, and then we'll go to Robert after Whitney.
Yes. Hello, everybody. My name is Whitney B., and I am an alcoholic and an addict. I am located in Orem, Utah, and found some great recovery down here at Reflections Recovery. And now I'm just doing whatever I can to share my experience and share experience, strength, and hope to the newcomer and anybody that is trying to recover.
Love it. Thank you so much, Whitney. It's good to have you here. Robert, why don't you take a minute and introduce yourself?
Well, I thought you'd never ask. My name is Robert, and I am a recovered alcoholic. And I'm pretty excited. Today I have 14,195 days, and I'm coming up on 39 years of personal recovery. And as excited I am about that, I'm really excited about day 14,195. I had the day started out with some uncertainty and some frustrations, and I called my sponsor and we talked it out. And then I went to a fabulous meeting. And I'm just like Whitney and of course you, Justin. I just want my sobriety, my recovery to be an example of what others can accomplish, providing they're willing to do the things that we have done to get in this recovered position. So I'm excited to be on your show. Always excited to see my friend Whitney, and let's go.
Yeah, I love that. Thank you. And Robert, yes. You said something there that I'm going to jump in with a question that's not necessarily on the list, but you said something there. You said something like that people willing to do what we have done to get here is kind of the idea of what that is. And I was just talking to somebody just the other day who said, "Hey, I want what you have." And I said, "Well, here's what I do right now to do that. Are you willing to do that?" Robert, what are some of the things you do that people say, "Hey, I don't know, that's maybe a step too far. I may not be willing to do that yet." What are your thoughts on that? And what are some things that you do in your life?
That's a great question. And I think what's really good about that question is, Whitney, you and I could answer it seamlessly. I mean, there would be very little variance. Justin, Whitney, as you know me, I'm not doing anything different today. I'm doing it on a different level, but I'm going to meetings. I'm reading my recovery material. I'm working with others. I have a great relationship with my sponsor, and I found a higher power that I can communicate with that does for me what I can't do for myself. So when I find a newcomer, are you willing to surrender? Because every day for all of us is a surrender day. I have to take my own inventory. I'm much more comfortable taking your inventory, but in reality, taking my inventory is what produces the result I'm looking for. And I take that inventory, I go to God, and then I go to another alcoholic who's still suffering, or any type of addict, because as you know, as we all have suffered, we come in with just a mixed bag of ailments, of symptomatic, because there's not enough alcohol on the planet to satisfy me. There's not enough crystal meth. There's not enough pornography. There's not a paycheck large enough for me to lose. There's not enough food for me to eat, because my middle name is Moore. And so I'm doing the same things today. And if I find someone who's not willing to say, "I'll do anything," because you know what? Gosh, this brings back so many memories, Justin. Whitney, I think I told you this story before. When I came back from my I was sober 71 days, came back from my relapse, and I asked my sponsor, "What do I need to do?" He said, "Everything I tell you to do." He said, "If you're not willing to do that, let's just be friends. Let's have lunch. But if you are, buckle up. This thing's about to get real." And that was it.
Yeah, that's so cool. Whitney, Robert said the first thing you got to do is surrender. What does that look like in your life, in your own recovery? To surrender to win from the outside, that just sounds ludicrous, but what does that mean? And how do you win doing that?
To me, that is completely letting go and giving in to what you know works and what you're told works. Surrendering is something that you have to kind of experience a bit of failure to finally be humbled enough to surrender, I think. And when you finally surrender, you have that willingness, like Robert said, to do whatever it takes. I remember, like he just said, how he had a relapse. I had one just the same, almost exactly the same amount of days clean, and I went back out. And that's what it took for me to realize, like, I can't do this on my own. I have zero power in, like, defeating this illness and getting my life back. And so I had to go find a sponsor and say, yeah, exactly that. Just, I will do whatever it takes. Tell me what to do, because what I'm doing is not working. And so, yes, surrender to me is just kind of letting go of everything you know and you're familiar with, and letting go of your ego, and just completely letting go of your own will.
Yeah. And I love how you said, I'm willing to do whatever, tell me what to do, because obviously what I'm doing isn't working. And that's a painful place to get to of, all right, I'm basically going to tell this relative stranger in a room that, theoretically, I don't even know their last name. Hey, you're going to run my life for a little while until I get in control or get in contact with my higher power. Robert, why is that? Talk to me about that process of just giving my life over to some guy that I don't even know his last name to run my life until I get a few things figured out.
I agree with Whitney. It's difficult to do. However, it's easier to do than living the way we were living. And we have to be sick and tired of being sick and tired. That was our phrase in Las Vegas. Are you sick and tired of being sick and tired? If you're not, I can't help you, because at the end of the day, only you can surrender for you. I had a person call me last week and said, I realized I'm spending $400 a month on beer, like beer. And he said, do you think I'm an alcoholic? I said, I don't know. Tell me a little bit about your life. Tell me a little bit about. So he painted a picture for me, and I said, well, only you can label yourself as an alcoholic, but I would suggest you're at least a problem drinker, because where drinking has caused you a problem, you're probably a problem drinker at least. Whether or not you're an alcoholic will determine what you do. So I love what Whitney said. Surrender is the key, because if you don't surrender, if I did not surrender in step one, there is no way on the planet I'm going to do step two. And every monotheistic religion of the world, every 12-step group, every path to wellness and wholeness involves the same process. So if we have a naysayer out there who says, oh, AA doesn't work, well, yeah, is what you're doing working? Because you're coming to us. We're not coming to you. We're not going to find you. You're finding us out of your own desperation. And if you're not desperate enough, you might end up just being a statistic instead of an example.
Yeah, Whitney, talk to us a little bit about that desperation and why it's vital to have in your experience with it.
In the beginning, I had a bunch of pride and a bunch of ego. I mean, it was 10 feet tall. And for whatever reason, I thought my own will, I thought I had different ideas that would work, and I'd try them and fail and try something new. I was very resistant to reaching out to somebody. I didn't want to humble myself, and I had too much pride to do that until I finally was as desperate as we're talking about. I mean, we're getting to the point where, it's a question whether you want to wake up or not the next day. It's that miserable. You've lost that much hope. And for me, that's what it took, like somebody prideful like me, and coming off the streets and essentially having, much of what I needed while I was out there. I was facing the law, and so it was either prison or treatment. And when you're looking at prison and having to go spend years locked up, that's a pretty desperate place to be. And so I even went into treatment still kind of just there to do my time, and when I went back out on that relapse, I finally felt like no one was there for me anymore. They had finally given up. Everybody that always was in your corner is kind of just throwing their hands up, and when they lose hope, that's when it gets real, And so that was the point for me where I had nowhere to reach, I had nowhere to live. And it was like, it's a life or death at this point, you've got to reach out and ask for help at that point. And that's what it took for me.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that, Whitney. As we're talking right here, we're talking a lot about that desperation, about the need to be honest and get real about some things. And I look back at my own experience as I approach that step one place in my life and in my recovery, and my self-talk was brutal. I would just beat myself up all day, all night, and just say, look, I couldn't even look myself in the mirror, let alone, say, hey, you're a loser, looking myself in the mirror. Talk to me about the importance to change my self-talk, and how do the steps allow that to happen as you go through that? What do you think, Robert?
I actually did a podcast on that, and that is so necessary because we are who we think we are. And until, that is so profound. Not what I just said, what you asked. Although what I just said was pretty intelligent. I believe that light pushes out darkness, good pushes out evil, and positive self-talk pushes out negative self-talk. So when it drives my wife crazy, I talk slowly most of the time when I'm trying to explain something, because I try to capture the words and use the right words. I try to stay away from negative connotations, negative mindset, because once that negative word implants in my brain, I think that I am that. So to the degree that I never say I have a cold. I never say I have the flu. I never say I'm not feeling good. I say such and such is trying to attack me, and I need to eat better. I need to exercise. I need to get more rest. I need to do something to push that away. Just as an example, when I came down to my office down here to start this opportunity with you and Whitney, I turned on the light. The light did not have to ask the permission of darkness to leave before it could be light. I turned the light on and the darkness left immediately. And I guarantee you, once, and that's where the steps come into play. I don't believe I have any hope, so I surrender. And then I came to believe that a power greater than myself could restore me to sanity. I start introducing positivity. And even when I go to meetings, I'm a big meeting guy. And I went to a meeting this afternoon, and I met a couple sponsees earlier today, and I went to a meeting on Tuesday. And I hear some really great things, and I try to incorporate that. So I tried even to be around people who express a positive approach to daily living. I feel good. I am better. I am recovered. I am of value. I am, and when I start incorporating those things, they say, fake it till you make it. Not a bad idea. We just need to incorporate positive self-talk if we ever expect to get rid of. If you look at an anorexic person, they could be as thin as 5'7", 125 pounds, very little body fat, and they think they're fat. They tell them, I'm fat, I'm fat, I'm fat, I'm this, I'm that, and the other. And they believe that because that's what they tell themselves. So they have to go to a psychiatrist to learn how to remap their thinking. And that's what we need to do.
Yeah, thank you, Robert. I got lost in what you were sharing there on that and changing that inner voice. Whitney, what experiences do you have with changing that inner voice, and how working through the steps has helped that happen?
Absolutely. So, interactive addiction, we have every right to be talking so negatively to ourselves because everything we're doing is so out of alignment with our morals, at least that was the way for me. And coming into treatment, and like Robert said, it is so essential. It is so powerful. The way you talk to yourself, the way you narrate your life, and I think that's why treatment was so helpful initially, because not only are you trying to train yourself a new way of thinking and a new way of, talking to yourself and, just your perspective on everything, but it's being fed to you like all day, every day. And so I think that's why treatment was so helpful initially, because if I couldn't tell myself I was great, everybody around me was, having my back and complimenting me and making me feel better about myself. As far as the steps go, that's where the magic happened for me. You can hear you're so great and you can hear you're strong and working so hard from all these people, but until you really believe it yourself, that's where the power really hits. It's great to have that push behind you, but once I started working the steps and kind of looking inside and seeing, not only reaching out and trying to establish a higher power for myself, which came pretty naturally for me, and that obviously is a huge part of, healthy self-talk. But once you work step 4 and 5, and 4 through 9, you take a really good look at yourself, and for me, it flipped my perspective. It kind of helped me own up to everything I'd done. So I wasn't carrying all that shame and guilt with me anymore. You face it, you let it go, and you move on. And naturally you feel lighter when you do that, and for me, working the steps, I felt like I was 100 pounds lighter when I came out of it. And so I think the steps for me, and for anyone, that's the perfect way to find yourself, rediscover who you are, let go of the past, and try to be, like Robert said, we take, inventory of ourselves every night. And that's a good way to check if we have any negative self-talk, or if we're not living the way we are aspiring to. You can check yourself on whatever things you like to check yourself on. And that's where I'm at today, is I can kind of see throughout my day where I could have been better or been of more service to other people, or just been a better person in general. And naturally, after doing all this, you see people better, you think of yourself better, you just start to feel better about yourself.
Yeah, I love that.
Let me
Go ahead,
piggyback. Let me
Robert.
just add to that a little bit, because Whitney touched on it. I think, one of the most important things to do for me in my personal recovery, especially, getting sober in Las Vegas, was changing old playgrounds and old playmates. Not only from the aspect of people who were drinking and using and carrying on, but I need to begin to associate with people who are going the same direction as me. Because the scientific principle that water seeks its own level, if I'm hanging around people who are negative self-talk, I'm going to adopt that language to be a part of, because I want to be a part of. So if I hang around with Whitney and you and others like you and Whitney, who are always positive, who are measuring their words, who are saying how they can be met instead of how they were, right? Then I'm going to elevate myself, because I want to be like you. And so I begin adopting your positive approach to living. I met a guy today. I refer to myself as a recovered alcoholic, not just an alcoholic, but I'm a recovered alcoholic. Now, we can debate that all we want, and I'm okay with that. But there was another person today who said, "Hey, my name is so-and-so, and I'm a recovered alcoholic." I told him afterwards, "Brother, it's so good to hear somebody else say that they have recovered." And it doesn't mean I can ever safely drink again. It just means that I'm not waiting for the other shoe to drop, that I have recovered from a seemingly hopeless state of mind and body. Mind, right? Hopeless state. So I don't talk in terms of hopelessness anymore. I talk in terms of hope. This is what I will achieve when I do this. And I go and do that and I achieve it. Now I am that person. I am a good husband. I'm a good father. I'm a wonderful grandfather. I'm a good friend. I'm a good fellow member of AA and other recovery programs that I choose. I'm just an all around, I'm just a good guy, and that's far removed from where we used to be. I used to be someone you could not trust with your money, with your significant other, with employment, with your vehicle, anything. I couldn't be trusted on any level at any time. I'm not that person anymore. Why not start talking that way?
Got questions about addiction, recovery, or just life in general? Let's noodle it out together. Grab your big book, a pen, a highlighter, and a notepad, and join Nikki M and me, Justin B, on Rico 12 Noodle It Out with Nikki M. Each episode, we take real-life questions, ours, yours, and those from the recovery community, and dig deep into the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous to find real, practical solutions. So, if you're ready to do the work and apply the solution, tune in to Noodle It Out with Nikki M, streaming now on your favorite podcast platform. Yeah, that's so cool. About a month ago, I came around a corner in my life, in my recovery. I was at a lecture, and this person that was hosting the lecture, the topic was resentment. But anyways, that's not where my life turned a corner. He said, something I do every night is I sit down on the edge of my bed and I ask, my innermost self, what is my purpose and why am I still here? And it's not a fatalistic question. It's a, hey, God, show me what my purpose is. What did you use me for today? Why was I here today? And I started doing that at the end of each day. And I tell you, I like myself now, And it's not that I didn't like myself before, but now I can sit there and I go, holy, look what God did with me today. Look what God has done in this place here to make it so that I have value and I'm not just checking out at the end of the day going, oh, that was another day, check. That was another day. Look what God did with me. Super cool stuff. And that's really changed my perspective in that. Do you have any thoughts on that or anything else that Robert said, Whitney?
Can I
Absolutely.
let me interject? And because I remember, Whitney, and just remember you when you walked into the rooms of recovery and you felt like you belonged. Remember that day?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And man, I would go to bars, I would go to casinos, I would go to strip clubs, I would go everywhere. I just wanted to belong. I just wanted to be a part of something where it was willing to tell me I was okay. And that almost killed me. And I remember that I will never remember the day that I walked into the turning point and I went into the 5:30 p.m. meeting and it came over me that I didn't have to go anywhere else again because finally I found a place where I belonged. And that was the beginning. That's all I needed, man. That was all I needed to taste, just a feeling of belonging, which was a positive representation of what had happened to me. And the light switch went on and I've never turned back.
I love that. And Whitney, you said that you absolutely remember that feeling of this is where I belong. Talk to us a little bit about that experience for you.
Yeah. And that's why, I have there's a couple specific times that I can remember having that overwhelming sense of just the light went on, And Robert mentioned one, just walking into meetings and finally feeling like you walk in and you recognize people and you feel people seeing you and knowing who you are and knowing your name. And there's just the spirit about the rooms, that's undeniable. And that the moment I felt that, it was almost like I can't imagine ever going back. And that's why I feel so confident in my recovery today, because I just feel like that spirit has entered my life and my everyday, functioning, and it hasn't left. And I feel like that sense of purpose that you were mentioning, I couldn't say one thing positive that I contributed to the world, a year ago and every day before that. Like I was living so poorly, I had, anyways, now I feel like I wake up, and from the moment I wake up, I have positive intentions. I'm full of gratitude. I have purpose. The things I'm going to do that day are of service and to help others. And once I took that role of just having a purpose, and I feel like my purpose now is just in recovery and to help anybody that's still out there that's still sick. I just want to be a part of that force that can change the world. And I feel that purpose now. And I think that's something that in my active addiction, I was missing so much. I woke up and, had nothing good to go, and it's just like, I can't imagine ever having anything different now. And I wake up and I'm trying to just do more and more, and it's just more fulfilling. And I'm so grateful to be where I am today. And it's due to this program and to these rooms and the people, taking me in and showing me the way. I owe so much to so many people that have showed me the way, Robert being one of them, and so I'm just grateful today to have a purpose, and it's, I think, established a purpose for the rest of my life. So
yeah, I think that goes to what Robert said earlier about, changing my old playgrounds and old playmates. I remember being in the gloom and the dark of active addiction. And as I look back at it, I could see myself. Well, actually, this is a phrase I did say: if I can't beat them, join them. Mm-hmm. And that's just basically, well, I guess these are my people, And now in the rooms, I get to walk in and I get to gravitate towards those people that have laser beams coming out of their eyes. These are my people, and these are who I want to be with, And that's just such a really cool thing. And honestly, I would have never thought, I'm going to go into a 12-step room and find my people. I never would have thought that before.
Right.
These are my people, man. These are my people. Any thoughts on that?
It's nice to end up there. And it's interesting that people who, it says in that page 17, we are people who normally would not mix. Mm-hmm. But there exists amongst us a friendliness, an understanding which is indescribably wonderful. We spent our life growing up with people, moms and dads, sisters and brothers, cousins, aunts, uncles. For those of us who got married, we had relationships, deep-rooted relationships with all these people, and we never felt apart. I always felt different. I always felt inadequate. I always felt that they were asking something of me. Whether or not they were was not the issue. I felt that they were asking something of me that I could never measure up to. I walk into the rooms of recovery and all that about me, and yet you want me around. You say nothing matters except the fact that you are here, where others that I had investment with and who had investment in me, the more they knew, the quicker and the farther they wanted me away.
Yeah. Robert, you mentioned relationships and how, those that are closest to us, we may have mixed emotions or mixed relationships with them. But a question that is here on this list that we've got here, and I think this is a fairly smooth transition. Why is it important in a relationship that both people are seeking wellness at the same time, even though they may have different reasons to get well? Hey, Spearheads, if you're looking to dive deeper into the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous with people who live the solution, then you won't want to miss RICO 12 Big Book Roundtable. Join David G., Nikki M., and me, the moderator Justin B., 3 recovered addicts from multiple fellowships, as we break down the big book line by line. In each 30-minute episode, we share our experience, strength, and hope in a real, raw, and practical roundtable discussion. So, if you are ready to learn and apply what you learn, Tune in to Rico 12 Big Book Roundtable on your favorite podcast platform.
Well, each person needs to be going in the same direction at the same time. And we'll talk about, a behavioral or substance abuse person compared to a codependent. Only a person who needs to feel better about who they are and what they're willing to tolerate and what they're willing not to tolerate, and when they're willing to say enough is enough. Something's wrong with that person if they allow someone like me to dominate their life, to not show up, to lose paychecks, to get kicked out of places, all those things that I was responsible for, something's wrong with that person. And if I'm going to get well, if I'm going to go to AA or NA or OA or SA or GA or whatever the A is, if I'm going to go to church, I think religion is a wonderful thing. We both need to be going in the same direction at the same time, because if the codependent no longer has the reason to safeguard that addict, yet they're not fulfilled unless that addict needs them, then they're going to subconsciously sabotage the wellness of that person trying to recover, because they need someone to validate themselves. If the person who is the addict is getting well and the other person isn't, then they're going to continue to blame them. And so it's a duality of concerns. When I go into a meeting and I meet a significant other who is with a person seeking recovery, I go to PROCEP and I give them numbers. Hey, are you going to Al-Anon? Are you going to support group? Because only a sick person would stay, because I know what he or she did. I know, because I did the same thing. Maybe a different version, but I did the same thing. So you need to be pursuing your own wellness, because if they get well and you don't, then there's going to be a problem. You're not going to want them well. Does that make sense?
It does. It does. Whitney, do you have any thoughts on that?
I do. I think it's super important, especially in early recovery. There's that rule, don't date for a year for a reason. And, I've actually lived through failure experiences of that, in my previous years, trying to sober up and trying to get clean, and having a significant other who may have said they wanted to do that, but they just weren't showing the same participation or the authentic, desire to do that. And it always became a codependent kind of thing. And the one of us or the other couldn't succeed in our search for recovery. But, moving forward in recovery now, I'm trying to do that no dating thing for a year, but like, even then, I just want to be independent enough and know myself well enough and love who I am before I even want to put myself out there, and I think it's so important for both parties to be, searching for the same things and having the same alignment in, morals and moral code. And the moment one is kind of sacrificing or, that give and take, isn't even, I think that's a problem. And I think it's just so important for somebody early in recovery to find themselves before, trying to find a partner. And so, you attract what you are and you attract what you're trying to be, and I just have faith in that working out in the end. I have faith in that, somebody coming one day that has the exact same morals and, is trying to do the same things in life, in recovery as well. So.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing that. I love that. Thanks for bringing that perspective in also. And, and I've shared this before in multiple places, but I'm going to share it here in case it's something new to people. My wife came into the Anon rooms almost 8 years before I finally said, okay, I'm going to stop trying this on my own and seek some help in the rooms. And over those 8 years, at least the first couple of years, there was a lot of friction because she would say, "Hey, you've got to go do this. You need to be attending these 12-step meetings. You need to get in here." And I'd be like, "No, I don't. Those aren't my people. I don't belong there, you know?" And after a couple of years, she stopped trying to get well, or she stopped trying to get me well for her, and she was
Nice.
just improving her own relationship with God and with herself.
Mm-hmm.
And after several years, I recognized that here I was, and here she was. You know, she was way further along the path than I was, in the direction we wanted to go together, and I was behind. And her statement to me that woke me up, my rock bottom, was, "You know what, Justin? If at the end of this life I'm hanging out with God and you're not there with me, I'll be okay, because God takes way better care of me than you do."
Wow.
And
I love that.
to a proud short man syndrome guy that keeps a roof over the head and food on the table, that was a punch in the gut, you know? And I went, "I'll show you, I'll triple my efforts." And well, that didn't work. And eventually I went tail between my legs. Okay, what do I do? And long story short, here we are. Let's see, I've been in the rooms, since 2013. So like almost 12 years. And my wife's been in the rooms almost 18 years. And just real miracles are happening through that. Any thoughts or feedback on that before we move on to another question?
Good for your wife.
Yeah, I'm spoiled.
Yeah.
I really am spoiled. She's a winner. And I'm blessed. All right. So another question we have here. This one, I'm going to go here. Why do things get easier on their own, or is it necessary to work a program of recovery? And I'm going to kind of expound on that just a little bit. I know a lot of people who get sober, quote unquote, sober, abstinent on steps 1 through 3, but they're miserable people to be around. Talk to me a little bit more about this working a program of recovery versus, the path terminating at sobriety or abstinence. Whitney, do you have any thoughts on that?
Absolutely. I've seen people do both ways. I've seen people dive right into the program, and I've seen people just try to white knuckle it. And, you might have some success doing that. And like you said, I just think it kind of leads into a state of unhappiness or unfulfillment, and I think working a program, there's just so much that comes from working a program. I can't even expand on everything it is, but it just keeps pushing you, and it keeps making you realize how much purpose you have, how much value you have. It's just always making everything grow, and without that kind of constant, I don't know, fulfillment, constant achievement, constant, seeking, you never stop learning. You're constantly wanting to stay curious. And I think that is what brings me happiness. And I think that's where people find happiness is, that self-discovery and working the steps and just getting everything, out there, and when people just, get sober and stay clean, I have nothing against that. I just wish you the best, because there's so much to be gained from working a program, and it never ends. There's always something more. And then you get into the service aspect of the program, and it's endless fulfillment. That's where I get all of my joy today is serving others and doing whatever I can to help the newcomer. And I mean, that's what's made me happy. And today I have zero obsession for drugs. I don't miss my friends and the playgrounds that I used to run around in. Looking back, it's 100% misery. It's just a state of hopelessness. And I just had no reason to exist when I was in my active addiction. But the fulfillment I have now and the connections I have now are so authentic, and I feel so authentic myself, and I don't feel like I have anything to hide. There's just nothing hanging over me that I feel like I haven't addressed, and I thank this program for that. And so I think it's just so hard to stay clean for super long periods of time without having some sort of direction, or some sort of, building on oneself, or I don't know. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah. Robert, what are your thoughts on that?
You know, I've just because I'm not drinking or gambling or going to Larry's Villa doesn't mean I'm recovering. It just means I'm not drinking, I'm not gambling, I'm not going to Larry's Villa. Um, and you can, sober just doesn't mean that I'm not drinking. It can apply to any behavioral or substance based addiction. And Bill Wilson said, we feel a man on thinking when he says sobriety is enough. Addiction is the epitome of selfishness and self centeredness. The alcoholic, the porn addict, who the very same person who is willing to sell his entire life for another drink, another relationship, another opportunity to spin the wheel, whatever makes you feel good. The epitome. When I sat down and I lost a paycheck and I knew I had to pay rent and get milk and pay my car, and I gambled a paycheck anyway, is there any greater example of being selfish and self-centered? Recovery says that we are an extreme example of selfishness and self-centeredness. We need something that will turn us from that. So for me, and I've tried a lot of different methods, for me, the 12 steps of recovery remap my thinking toward others. Whitney touched on it earlier. It's not about me anymore. And Justin, you mentioned it when you said, this person sits in the bed at the end of their day and they say, how can I be better for that next person? How good of a person could I really be? Because I know the better I am, the more value I will have to another person. And until we make that paradigm shift, we're going to just have to be satisfied not drinking, not using, not losing a paycheck, not going to the strip club. In my opinion, that's temporary. If I don't find happiness, joyousness, freedom as a result of not drinking, not using, not carrying on, but finding a way to do that permanently, one day at a time for the rest of my life, I'm probably going to relapse. I'm probably going to make a decision because at some point I'm going to say, I'm okay. I'm better. At least I'm not drinking. At least I'm not using. At least I'm not carrying on. At least I'm not doing this and that and the other. And we will relapse. I mean, person can argue with me, and I'm fine with that. Just if you're miserable, there's a reason if you're not using, if you're not acting out and you're still miserable, something's wrong.
Yeah. I've got a quote up here. I've got quotes plastered all over my walls around here from people that I've talked to, interviewed, or heard. They say something profound and I'll put it on a sticky note and I basically have wallpaper of quotes here. One of them here that I have, and I wish I would have written down who it was, but it says, I'm sober because of what I don't do. I'm recovered because of what I
I
do.
do.
Sober is not well. So you've heard, maybe it was you that said it,
That
huh,
was
Robert?
me. Yeah.
Love it. I'm
I
going to put
want
your
you to
name
know I
on there
copied
now.
it from someone else.
Yeah, I love that because, yes, I can stop my drinking, my using, my acting out behaviors, whatever it may be. I can stop doing that and be sober for a while, but I can be miserable in that. But when I get into action, like what Whitney said, the service aspect of recovery is where that's where the secret sauce is.
Mm-hmm.
Is, I connect with others, I serve others, and I learn from others. and then I get recovered in that process. So, any other thoughts on that before we move on to another question?
No, just quickly, until I'm willing to be third, I'll never be first.
Until I'm willing to be third, I'll never be first. Robert, that's a little bit over my feeble brain. Why don't you expound on that just a little bit?
Well, the 11th step of recovery puts God first, and the 12th step puts others right under God. And if I'm not willing to put God first and others second, I will be last.
Hey, Rico 12 Spearheads. If our recovery resources have helped you, please consider a donation. Your financial support, as well as your word of mouth support, keeps Rico 12 running and reaching the man who is still sick. Donate today at rico12.com/support or check the show notes for PayPal and Venmo links. Every contribution helps carry the message. Thanks for being a Rico 12 Spearhead. I love that. If I'm not willing to be third, I will never be first. Is that what that was?
Yes, sir.
I love it. It's going to be on my wall. All right. So next question, I'm going to kind of hit the brakes here and jump tracks, because this is one that I think is important to address. Is it okay that my higher power is the group or an untraditional God? Let's start, Nick, Whitney. Sorry, what's your take on that?
You know, I know a lot of people who struggle with the idea of God, right? And so when they are starting the program and they are starting to work the steps and they get to this whole higher power thing, it's always suggested to just go with whatever you feel is a higher power to you at the moment, you know? And for me, my higher power is, you know, what it is, but I don't think there's a problem with making a higher power what works for you is what works for you. And I think once you continue to go down the path and work the steps and have the whole experience of freedom and joy and happiness, your higher power may evolve, and you might find yourself having, you know, a real connection and a real relationship with a higher power that is so much bigger than you, you know. And I'm not picky about what people's higher powers are, as long as it does the job, you know, as long as, you know, it's what your higher power does for you. It's not who your higher power is, you know. It's all, in the end, it's all the same concept. And so I think it's totally fine, you know, whatever gets you putting your faith in something and having that direction and, you know, giving you that hope and that kind of, you know, just the whole idea of it being so much bigger than you, you know. I think that's what's important. So
Love that. Thank you, Whitney. How about you, Robert? What's your take on this?
Well, my take is, this is why I love Whitney so much, because I completely agree. It's not who your higher power is what your higher power does. And if I've said that once, I've said it 1,000 times. In the beginning, we're so tangible. You know, I won't tell you what faith I am, but there's scripture, there's sacred writing out there that says God is a spirit. Those who worship him must worship him in spirit and truth. Okay. So, but I can't see a spirit, but I can see you. And in the beginning, it took me 7 years to really, really hone in on who God was going to be for the rest of my life and for eternity. And in the meantime, the group did just fine, because I'm a very tangible person. If I can't see it, smell it, taste it, touch it, experience it in a real sense, I don't believe it. I mean, that's who we were. That's who I was. I was very superstitious. I was very, what's the word? I was very plastic. I was very selfish in that manner. I had to be able to identify it to believe it. And then I barely believed it. But man, when I heard some stories in the room and I could see Eddie and Buddy and Jack and Texas Mike and Russian Ted and Slow Will and Steve and Scotty Shields and the other giants who taught me how to be sober and Max Brooks, I thought these cats, they've tapped into something that I have no knowledge of. I think they should be my higher power. And they were. The rooms, the men and the women I met in the rooms of recovery were my higher power. And that worked right up until I found my own. Right when I was willing to trust something I couldn't see or I couldn't hear in an audible tone, then I transferred that trust from the group to a power that could do for me what I could do. And I still don't understand God. No, I think I do. And then God throws me a curveball. I think, who the heck are you? You know, you're really serious about this. I thought you were just playing, you know, but the group, you know, when I had a situation today, I talked to God, but that wasn't enough. I called my sponsor and I said, hey, this is what I'm feeling. This is what I'm going through. Help me sort this out. Because God speaks to my sponsor after 39 years, you know, he's still speaking to my sponsor. And I like it. I like that about the God that I serve. Gives me great freedom. So in the beginning, you bet my higher power was the group until I could trust something I couldn't see.
Yeah, you know, and my story on that is it's not unique, but is my story. I came into the rooms knowing God. I knew that God had to be this way, exactly this way, and that's the only way God could be, you know? But it wasn't working for me.
Yeah.
It wasn't working for me. And a few years in, I had somebody of a completely different faith, different background, different everything, talk to me about how he had to fire the God of his previous understanding in order to find peace with God. And I thought, what? And as I went through that a little bit further, I realized I had to do the same thing. I had to fire the God of my understanding. And I was scared to death that I would be falling into a vortex, a bottomless pit, because there wouldn't be any foundation beneath me. And now as I look at this, I am grateful that God is this ever expanding. So I'm going to rephrase that. I am grateful that my understanding and perception of God is this ever expanding, ever evolving thing that I'll continue to learn more. Like what you said, Robert, throw me a curveball, please throw me a curveball. I want to learn more, you know? Yeah. And that's a totally different perspective than I've had my entire life. Is I always thought God is this way and there is no changing of anything that you can perceive there. Man, I'm grateful it's different than that. All right. Before we wrap up, do you have any final closing thoughts, either of you, both of you?
You know, I just really appreciate your mission. I've grown to love you and like you so much, Justin. Thank you for having this platform. Thank you for having Whitney and me. And I thought about you today and how grateful I am that God has given you a platform that you reach. People don't understand all that you do. And I'm very grateful for all that you do and for the people that you reach worldwide. And it's a privilege and an honor to be a part of your mission.
Thank you, Robert. Whitney, do you have any final closing thoughts?
Absolutely. I just want to second what Robert said. I think people like you are spiritual giants and giving us opportunities to be on your show and share our experience, strength, and hope. And I'm a strong believer that God speaks through people. And I'm just so happy to be a part of it. I'm so happy to have the opportunity to reach out to the newcomer. I think it's such a blessing. And so, like Robert said, thank you for having the both of us on here. I will take the opportunity anytime I can get it. So thanks again.
Yeah, and thank you both. If there's any spiritual giantism, whatever that word would be, it's because I stand on the shoulders of people who have gone before me, and I get to associate with people like you, Robert, and you, Whitney. Thank you so much for that. And thank you all, everybody out there listening. Check out all of the other things that Robert's doing, and check out all the things that's going on in the recovery world, and jump on this boat. Jump on the boat, stay on the boat, come all the way in, sit all the way down, and work this program, because you are worth it.